Jack sat alone at the back of the train, alone in his thoughts. They hadn't gotten anything else out of the Oracle after that, and it had well and truly been shaken by the fact that an unknown third party had somehow manipulated its memory and archive of knowledge without it even knowing, at least until the right question began to unravel everything. Anything related to outsiders from another plane had been corrupted somehow, only leaving behind common knowledge. What the Oracle had pledged, however, was to inform them of any changes and discoveries related to Jack, as it attempted to heal itself with the aid of the Green Wardens, who did not hesitate to call for serious backup once the Oracle had alerted them to its discovery. Jack looked at his Dominator in his hand, and thought back to the moment he had been told that returning to Earth was impossible. He had been so close to blowing his brains out of sheer grief. Allura and the others being the only reasons why he didn't just do it then and there. But the disturbing realization that followed was even worse, replacing his grief with a cold rage that threatened to overwhelm him. Whoever or whatever had gotten to the Oracle first had deliberately prevented the group from learning anything useful, only leaving them with more questions instead of answers. And what the hell could essentially lobotomize an ancient, powerful being like that anyway? The dog that lay down next to him raised its muzzle, sniffing at Jack while looking up at him with bright, intelligent eyes, sensing his distress. Jack could never bring himself to shoo the dog away, so after repeated nudges for some attention, he finally relented and started scratching the dog behind the ears. "I'm surprised he didn't stay with the Oracle," Allura spoke from behind as she sat down next to Jack, and putting a comforting arm around him. "He looked so peaceful lying down among the roots, yet the Green Wardens looked so surprised when he didn't hesitate to come with us." The Eladri forced Jack to look at her. "Chio tells me you shouldn't be on your own right now." Jack snorted. "Oh, really? Why would that be? The fact that this entire trip was a waste of time despite all the shit we had to go through just to get there in one piece?" "Not a waste," Allura comforted. "We know that there might have been a possible inquiry for humans before." "Yeah, it's worrying if true, but that doesn't necessarily mean much," Jack replied uncertainly. "Whoever got to the Oracle first could have just heard about me. We have no idea when they got there before us." "That wouldn't explain why they go to such trouble to corrupt the Oracle, to be unable to answer," Allura reasoned. "And I think you're smart enough to know that deep down." "Yeah," sighed Jack. "But that leaves us with a lot of disturbing questions." Allura nodded. "Which comes down to just why?" She sighed and leaned into their embrace. "I know it's not what we hoped, but the others and I are with you. As long as we can move forward along the winding path, we will. We'll all go home and plan our next move with the others and get through this together." "Thanks, Allura," Jack quietly replied, as they just sat there in silence, with nothing but the quiet hum of the train for company. Chio was very meticulous in her examination of the cauldron, trying not to think about the horror she had seen in Jack's aura. She so desperately wished she could talk to him herself, but she trusted Allura to do what she did best in her stead. She felt sorry for him being away from the rest of his own kind, and couldn't imagine how she'd cope if the roles were reversed. "So," Sephi plopped down on the seat next to her. "All the craziness and mysteries we gotta deal with, and you wanna deal with the cauldron that Dubaku didn't even get to really use, apart from putting a barrier up?" "Who's driving the train?" Chio asked with raised eyebrows. "Nika is. I'm technically on guard duty, relax," Sephi grinned. "Since we got no possible ambush spots down this stretch of track, I figured I could get away with stretching my wings." "You know this for certain?" "Give me some credit, Chio. I ran a mapping program on our way here. If Allura insists on talking to the Temple of Hope people about this place so they can investigate, I might as well charge them for a map and the access codes to the train." "Yet more credits and treasure?" Chio grinned at her friend. "We weren't even expecting anything coming on this trip." "Well, what can I say?" Sephi laughed, as she made the two of them drinks. "I never like seeing a good opportunity go to waste. Case in point." Sephi unslung her new gun the Green Ones gave her. "Hopefully this bad gal will be better at taking down Risen." The Green Wardens had little use for a smart-linked plasma burst rifle, considering they stayed away from any kind of cyberware whatsoever. Sephi tried her best to keep a good poker face and not look too excited when Nika pointed out that it had been heavily modified to reduce recoil and kickback, though some testing from the others about selling it quickly broke down Sephi's facade when she immediately laid claim to it. There weren't many longer-range guns she could use that packed a punch like this after all. Though, she added solemnly, I think we'll need some funds to get some more information. Hire a few brokers, investigators and researchers to help Jack out. Yeah, she replied in agreement. That's why I'm on the cauldron right now, trying to find out what it is and what it does. Everything else we need a group discussion when we get home. What have you found out so far? Sephi asked innocently, as she handed Chio her drink. I originally thought it helped Dubaku augment his divine magic, Chio speculated, sounding unsure. Negdon's been dead for a while, so at most Dubaku should only have a finite amount of bestowed power left, only enough to cast basic cantrips without aid. But nothing about the cauldron suggests it specifically enhances or bestows power at all. Is it possible that his cyber messes with his magic in some way? Sephi speculated, not quite believing it herself, making Dubaku think he was casting divine spells instead of arcane. We don't know the nature of the cyberware, Chio thought, but I do know that historically Nekton's priesthood considered cyberware taboo, because it messes with the whole undeath afterlife spiel. Masking one type of magic for another isn't something I've ever heard of, and wouldn't know too much about, but I do know that any attempt to use cyberware to grant magical abilities and knowledge of powerful spells have all failed. Worth a thought, Sephi replied. Maybe he got juiced up from the spawn of Nekton. He did wake it up after all. Perhaps, Chio allowed, but we just don't know for sure. I fear we'll never get the whole picture by ourselves. I think the cyber is our best lead. As battered as it is, I might be able to pull some information off of it, Sephi replied thoughtfully. Relax, she added, seeing Chio's knee-jerk reaction. No way am I letting it out of a suppression field. I have a few contacts that might be able to help me with the proper equipment. That's good, Chio sighed. Maybe it'll reveal other pieces of the puzzle as well. Yeah, Sephi agreed solemnly. But either way, I have a bad feeling about all of this. Finally there, Nika called out to the others. It had taken several uneventful hours for the group to take the train back to the Erie station they had liberated it from, electing to carry on, albeit more slowly as Jack, Chio and Nika did their best to clear the tracks of debris, with Sephi simply ramming anything too stubborn to be shifted. Though the train had suffered a little bit of damage, it could still move, which was all that really mattered. Future trips wouldn't be a problem to the factions that wanted to investigate their discovery of a spawn of Nekton. Finally, Oliver called out. I've got water for you all, then we better get moving. We're making very good time, but I think we can all agree that the sooner we get back home, the better. Don't forget the drinks, Sephi added, looking to Jack a little concerned. We know we didn't get what we wanted in the end, but we still accomplished a lot. We can rest and cheer up a bit. We'll need to tell the Temple of Hope what's happened first and foremost, Allura argued, not unkindly, knowing that Sephi only wanted to try and cheer Jack up. And the sooner we get some answers, the better. We're not done yet. Some of it can wait a little, Chio conceded. While I agree that we should report to the temple, we also need to wind down from our ordeal, some more than others. She looked at Jack, who didn't notice her part of the conversation, until Nika summarized it for him. Though the human was putting on a brave face, he couldn't hide his aura from her. And it was in tatters. I don't need to rest, Jack just muttered. The sooner I know, the better. That will still take some time, Nika told him, as they picked up their stuff from the train, stepping out onto the platform. And I agree with the others. Sucks how it ended, so stiff drinks are needed. We're done for now, but at least we still have a trail to follow. Jack didn't say anything, just keeping to himself as they ascended the stairs, confirming that they could now bypass the door that had previously trapped them in. He knew deep down the others were right, however. They had gone for a lot more than they had bargained for, so blowing off some steam was important, even if they did have school the next day. The first signs of morning light were upon them, the solar plate above that provided the day cycle, close to fully passing over them. It was far from a traditional sunrise from Earth that gradually peaked over the horizon due to planetary rotation. Here it was either completely dark due to an eclipse-like event, or it was fully bright, with little in between. Still, despite that, there was apparently still some light coming off some of the buildings in the abandoned town, with a few reflected colours lighting up the floors, and rapidly moving to shine on Allura, as the dog began to growl. Wait. Jack wasted no time, tackling Allura out of the way as the shot zipped past them, before quickly lifting his plasma rifle and immediately opening fire at the spot the light came from, panicking the others before more of the inaccurate fire of the would-be snipers pinged around them. Shit! Get to cover! Nika yelled, as she laid down some covering fire, as Sephi picked Allura up and ushered them to the nearest building, which was far closer than the tunnel they had just left. Who the hell are these guys? Scavengers? Sephi asked. I detected no auras, Chio added, wide-eyed with worry. I should be able to tell now the spawn of Nekton is dead. So an ambush, Allura groaned, conjuring a few protection spells. They must have found out we'd be here and masked themselves. Do we know how many there are? Nika asked worriedly. Chio? I can't tell. They have a spellcaster blocking me. Suddenly, the undisciplined gunfire ground to a halt. Glenfarnex! A rasping sound growled out. Why so scared? Krauk, Nika growled, before adding with a whisper. Don't reveal our position, Allura. Try that misdirection thing you can do, Sephi suggested, to which Allura nodded in quick acknowledgement, while casting a quick spell before applying to Krauk. How many times must we do this before you give up, Krauk? A voice carried from lower down in the building they were in to echo out. I've lost count of how many times we've beaten you. Until I win, Glenfarnex, Krauk snarled. But today's business first. Hand over the Death Welder, and we won't kill you when we have fun with you and your friends. I know Zal here wants to put that loudmouth Kism bitch in her place. Look here! Look, listen! They heard another voice bellow out. Y'all can't do shit against 20 gunners and our mage, so y'all better get out of here now, real talk! The Redeemer, Jack muttered, as they quietly ascended the flight of stairs, with Sephi slapping a few anti-personnel mines around and behind them for good measure. I was wondering if we'd see him again. At least we know their numbers now, Nika grimly replied. That's not going to happen, Redeemer, Allura called back. Find another job. You're in over your head. That ain't happening. Y'all can't hide from us, they roared back. What's our game plan? Jack asked quietly. And when he didn't immediately get an answer, he followed up with, do we have one? I can try and contact Luvia and see if she can fly over here and help, Allura finally answered, sounding unsure. I don't think we have time for that, Sephi whispered. I can see their matrix signatures. We're going to have to hold out here and reduce their numbers. They're here for me. I can try and lure them away from you, Jack suggested. That won't work. They want us as well, Chio warned, translated by Nika. We're better sticking together and waiting for an opportunity to break out. These guys are undisciplined. We need to take advantage of that. We have all the time in the galaxy, Krauk yelled out at them, clearly wanting to keep them talking. Come out and face us! Reckon you can rile them up and get them to try coming to us? Nika suggested. Get them to Sephi's minds if you can. Chio, try astrally projecting. Too scared to come and get us? I thought that those wanting to join the Red Legion had to have balls. Allura taunted to their attackers, still using her ventriloquist trick. There was surprisingly a brief pause, with several muffled voices surrounding the building before they heard the voice of Zal yell out to someone unseen. Nobody asked what you think. The only reason I haven't killed you is your magic, so make yourself useful. There won't be anybody left to tell her what'll happen here. I'll make sure of that. He then shouted louder. We're gonna have some fun using you girls for all the trouble you've given us. Why are you all just standing out here? We gotta push these guys. I ain't sharing the bounty or the poon with pussies. I'm in charge, Redeemer, not you, Krauk roared back. Though that declaration came with some voices of protest. We all get an equal share in the bounties. Just keep their bodies intact and warm when we attack, and we'll all get a turn with them. Nah, fuck that. Hey boys, first one to kill the outsider gets first pick of the girls. Get in there. With several roars of approval, several of the combatants surrounding them could be heard rushing into the building, as both Krauk and Zal yelled over one another to try and regain order. They're taking the bait, Sephi grinned despite herself, as several small explosions went off. Now we pick them off and make ourselves an opening to escape. Wait for them to make their way up. I have some grenades from the green ones that'll help, Nika added. Save a few to blast us a way out if we need to, Chio warned. We don't want to be... Why are you aiming over there, idiot? They heard Krauk yell out at someone. There were last heard on the ground floor. I know exactly where he is, hissed the voice of Spartawolf, which only Chio could barely sense, as the dog started to give a panicked whine. Fireball, take cover! Chio telepathically yelled to the others, and they immediately braced for impact. All except for the human boy that couldn't hear her. Jack saw what the others were doing and moved a split second after they had, dodging away from the group into the next room. But a split second wasn't enough, and Jack had no idea what was coming. The powerful blast of fire smashed into the building, ripping apart the room Jack was in, bellowing dust and smoke. The last thing the girl saw was the form of Jack falling. Jack, no! Allura yelled in despair. I'll kill you all! She screamed out at the attackers. He might still be alive, Chio told the others, as she drew upon her power. Then we've got to help him, Allura commanded. We've got hostiles! Nikki yelled, as she returned fire to one of the hunters that had appeared down the only surviving corridor. Shit! Sephi yelled, as she backed away from the blast site, several rounds of laser and a few plasma shots missing her. We aren't going anywhere for now. Jack, if you can hear me, hide! She called into the comms. No answer. Damn it! Sephi yelled, as she sprayed plasma fire back with her rapid-fire pistols. Alora was shaken by the loss of Jack, but a resolve took her over, and she began casting her protection spells on the others. This would be a hard fight. His potent fireball having ripped into the side of the building where the human was, Spartal cursed under his breath. He wasn't sure where to place the blame for the utter foolishness of their group's plan of attack. The stupidity of Krauk, the Redeemer and Jarl's plan to frame people at the problem, or the many idiots that decided to follow them. It had not been a fun or productive time deciding who was in charge of the operation, and nobody seeing themselves as a leader seemed to be willing to back down or concede as they travelled to Glazespring to pick up the trail. Spartal certainly hadn't been amused where most of the group were swayed by outrageous propositions and false promises by the other three, but the fact that Krauk had the local contacts and seniority meant that he was first among equals, though none of the others would ever publicly admit it. The Cyberwolf had relished spending the trip to this abandoned town, hyping his followers up about the money and the other perks they were sure to get under his leadership. Still, none of the posturing and group politics mattered to him for now. Spartan had nothing personal against the girls, and definitely had no intention whatsoever of allowing the idiots to follow through on their disgusting threats and promises to them, assuming they could even overcome Glenfarnix's capable group. He had no doubt that they bunkered down well enough to maintain a stalemate before attempting a retreat, which was fine with him. He just needed them to be kept busy after all. Spartal, where are you? Krauk growled into the comms. Stupid mage, you were right! They're on the 3rd floor. We need your magic to break through and... Spartal turned off his burner comlink and tossed it to the side, having never had any intention of taking orders from the leadership that had snubbed him. He had no doubt that the use of his magic would indeed turn the battle in their favour, but Spartal had no intention of helping his side beyond achieving his personal goal, and he certainly had no intention of sharing the bounty. From the nearer, the idiots were just there to provide a distraction while he faced the human alone in battle, though he did hope that a few of the more reasonable members that had looked to him for operational leadership heeded his tactical advice and kept themselves alive. He had certainly warned them not to interfere with his efforts at least. Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, Spartal sighed. He couldn't allow himself to be distracted. He had to do this, though he knew that his sister would disapprove. The ever-increasing bounty represented a life-changing opportunity for them to make something of themselves and live well, as their mother had intended and wished for them, before their father showed his true colours. Spartal's personal revenge on the human just made him want this victory that much more. He saw what he was looking for as he floated unseen in the air, as shifting in the rubble several stories below, right in the middle of the collapse. Good. In spite of his goal, his pride definitely didn't want Jack's death to be that quick and easy. His prey was in sight, and he was prepared. The human would die. Painfully. Jack groaned as he shifted his body, pushing some rubble off of him, and knowing he'd have to move. He had no idea what had hit him, but he had enough sense in him to know that the others were in danger, and he needed to get to them. Stumbling to his feet, he picked up his axe, and checked that he had indeed still had his Dominator holstered on his hip, but there was no immediate sign of his plasma rifle. Shaking himself loose, he looked up to see the flashes of gunfire from above. Alora? He yelled out. Jack! Thank the Mother Tree you're right! He heard her call back via comms, though there was a lot of static buzzing in his ears as she spoke. Chio, can you get him up? Don't, Jack whispered in his comms, getting his wits together. I'll go around and ambush them. I've still got my axe and pistol. Chio has your rifle. We're pinned down for now, but they're being sloppy. Blast a hole for the ground if you need to escape, Jack panted, as he started moving. We can... Jack slammed to the ground, as something grabbed his leg and tripped him up. Looking at what it was, he panicked as soon as he saw the wire wrapped around his ankle. I don't think so, human. He heard a familiar hiss echo from all around him, as the wire snapped taut, and he was dragged hard along the ground. Jack? What's going on? Oliver called back, having heard some noise of fighting on his end. You heard him, Nikki yelled, as her grenade took out two of the hunters. We can't stay here for too long. They're pushing up on us. Agreed, Laura growled. Chio? The Alifi quickly swapped places with Sephi, who was now fully attuned to her smuggling rifle as she peeked with it around the corner, without needing to stick her head out. The desk that several of the gunners were carrying to shield themselves ate several shots, but eventually Sephi was able to melt it enough to injure one, forcing them to duck into another room. Tshirt concentrated for a moment as she felt the fault lines of the floor they were on. By expanding and pushing in the right places, she created a hole in the ground big enough for all of them. "Sephi, you go first and take point," Nika told her, unleashing with covering fire that stopped their attacks from pushing up. "Don't fall behind," the scritter called back. "I'll get my drone so we can get a better viewpoint." "Good idea if you can do it quickly and safely," Allura replied. "Chio, cover her." Sephi dipped down first, checking her corners with her plasma rifle before carefully checking the corridor outside. "Clear," she replied, before quickly moving back to unpack her drone from the bag, setting it to thermal as Chio moved down to cover her with her powers. "That floor is ready to completely collapse with the right amount of force," Chio pointed out. "Allura's way ahead of you," Nika called back, as she heard the familiar whispering of Allura's casting. "Ignite!" Allura finished, pointing her arms up, and placing her pyroglyph in the ceiling. "Hopefully this works," she whispered, before asking the others, "Ready?" "Ready," Sephi replied, now covering the room with her pistols. "Get out of there!" "We have an emergency exit nearby we can use," Chio added. "I can cast a displacement to help, but they probably have someone watching it." "As long as we can break out, it's worth it," grunted Nika, and she was the last one to quickly cipher the hole, not missing a beat as she reloaded with a fully charged battery before taking cover in the small corridor they were in beside Sephi, trailing their guns to the room they'd just left. "No need to double tap or finish off any of the down unless you think they're still in the fight," Nika whispered, as she calmed herself down in anticipation. "If they have buddies stopping them from bleeding out, that's more people not shooting us." "Gotcha," Sephi replied, not even thinking of making a joke about it. "That doesn't apply to the leaders, though. Take them out and the rest will run." "Good girl," Nika growled in approval, as they heard heavy footsteps running in from above. "Get a grenade down that hole!" someone above them yelled. "Get ready," Allura whispered, before activating the glyph she'd placed, blasting anyone in the room to smithereens and collapsing the floor. Sephi and Nika quickly blasted the ones that fell down, while Chio took out anyone unfortunate enough to fall down in the corridor. "Good job, everyone. Now let's get out of here and find Jack," Allura spurred them on, letting Nika take point as they made their way to the exit. She hoped Jack was okay.